afternoon. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, once again, my name is Oliver Call. Now, in this case, I am representing the state of San Andreas, more specifically, the victim and her family in this case. Now, today it will be shown beyond any reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty in the first-degree felony murder of Dorothy Levenstein. Now, as a prosecutor, it is my job to prove the charges against the defendant today. We've shown mountains of evidence that will lead you all to the same conclusion, that the defendant is guilty of Miss Levenstein's murder. Ultimately, it'll be your job to examine this evidence impartially and apply the law to the best of your ability when in deliberations. Again, my job is to lead you through all this evidence. And by the end of the trial today, you'll be tasked with determining several factors in this case. Number one, you're going to determine whether or not the defendant caused the unlawful death of Dorothy Levenstein. Number two, whether or not the defendant did so intentionally and with premeditation. Now, simply put, intentionally means that the defendant wanted to commit the murder, that he wasn't forced to, nor was it, say, a case of self-defense. The murder was the objective. Now, premeditation, on the other hand, as I assume not all of you are lawyers here, the defendant had consideration and or planning of the act prior to commission. Overall, when it comes to premeditation, the time frame of this planning doesn't matter. So long as by the end of the trial, it is clear that the defendant was prepared for the murder, of course did so intentionally. That is all that needs to be proven today. Those two factors, the unlawful death and whether it was done with premeditation and, of course, intentionally. Now that we have gone over everything to get you started, I would like to go ahead and explain the overall facts of the case. Now, of course, overall, this was a heinous crime that was committed in nature of a human sacrifice. I would like everyone to take I would like all of you to consider the pain and overall suffering that the victim, Miss Levenstein, felt. Just the horror that this crime truly is, and the twisted mindset of the defendant that a human life can be thrown away simply for a fairy tale the defendant subscribes himself to. Now, that it'll be shown through the evidence that on the afternoon of August 5th, 2021, at approximately 14:25, officers on duty received a 911 call claiming that there is no place like home, so I sent her there instead. She will not be missed, for she has no head. End quote. Now, this call was placed in a remote camp in the Paleto Bay area. You hear from the first responders that arrived on scene. You hear what the scene was like. You'll see how the officers witnessed the defendant standing over his victim, not simply admiring the murder he had just committed, but you'll hear how the defendant was actively eating the body of Miss Levenstein. Other than that, you will hear how the officers, when they finally got closer to the defendant, they found cultist symbols littering the area, a limb and headless body of Miss Levenstein, the defendant, attempting to run away from the atrocity he so clearly committed. Now, further, we will hear from the investigators that apprehended the defendant, that processed the scene, and overall interrogated the defendant. Now, the defendant explains how he is in a cult, of course, in that interrogation. We'll hear how he said that cult believes in human sacrifices, how this murder was a human sacrifice, and it was justified from his own words. Now, finally, they're going to learn how this murder was carried out with premeditation, how the defendant did not simply murder Miss Levenstein out of the blue, and how he lured her up to the secluded location, already supplied with pamphlets, the murder weapon, and all other cultist symbols that were found on scene. And then, all of that in mind, he committed the murder. You'll hear from his own words from this interrogation footage how he admits that he handpicked his victim for this murder, for this human sacrifice. At the end of this trial, you will agree that the way that this murder was carried out, the preparedness of the defendant alone shows the premeditation of his actions. Now, once again, overall, it'll be shown through the witness testimony, photos, and all other evidence provided that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of first degree felony murder, Dorothy Levenstein. Thank you.
The defense may make their opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Jeff Wilkins. I am the defense, and I am probably a new face to many of you. So, the defense has had about a month and a half to gather its evidence and present a case. I, however, have had this case for about 8 hours. And in that time, I have scrutinized the evidence, as I'm sure you will as well. And let's just say there is quite the story built up, and all the other evidence that would have led to my client's viewpoint being construed, it was left out, even though it was viable evidence. But it didn't fit the prosecution, so it didn't make it in. And the defense attorneys who were on this case previous, apparently, well, they didn't feel strongly enough to protect their client. The acts of which we are going to discuss in this case are quite gruesome. However, if we take all the evidence into account, as I'm sure you will see that the prosecution is trying to paint a very clear picture that they have worked very long and hard to make sure they have every brush and every palette at their disposal. I'm just here to add the paint thinner.
All right, let's move on. The prosecution may call their first witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Officer Arnom to the stand.
Let's get the motor kit.
Oh, you taking the piss?
Mark, can you go to that, please?
Yep.
Which side am I going on? Are you McLean? Yes, sir, right up here. If you would, sir, face me. Raise both hands. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you may take your station. Ooh.
Hello.
Greetings. Sorry today, Detective.
You know, it's the weekend. Dressed up, you know, as good as I can be.
Very good to hear. Now, can you go ahead and describe, or state, of course, for the jury, your occupation?
Yes, I am the captain of the Major Crimes Division that is under the division of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Now, in that time, in your position, have you accumulated a lot of knowledge in terms of policing, investigations, overall the prosecution and apprehension of criminals?
I would say so, yes.
Now, I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 1.
Sure, let me pull up the case here.
If you need a physical copy, I can provide that for you.
Just give me one moment. I gotta pull it back up here on my tablet.
First.
You said Exhibit 1?
Exhibit 1.
Got it.
You recognize that exhibit?
Yeah, that's the dispatch call. It was a 311 call we received the day in question.
Okay. And what date was that?
That would have been August 5th, based on the timestamp here that it was uploaded from my camera.
Can you recall the approximate time?
I'll be honest, I can't. I know it was midday. I was actually on standard patrol training a cadet when that call came in, and I immediately told him that we gotta go to that. So we did, but I don't remember the exact time.
What's the name of the cadet that you were with?
Ryan Fisher.
Now, I'd like you to go ahead and read off of this actual exhibit. So I'd like you to read the very top part to begin with. What the actual caller said.
You want me to just read the whole message?
Yes.
It said, "There's no place like home, so I sent her there instead. She will not be missed, for she has no head. ...
Now, in your experience, what did that lead you to believe?
That there's something fishy going on. It's not typical that we get those types of calls, let's put it that way. But being a detective, those are the types of calls that I like to go to because they usually lead to some sort of case. It's not a big red ping. So a lot of cops disregard them, but those are the ones I look for. Those are the ones I live for. So that's why I told my cadet that we immediately needed to go there. And in the area that it was, it made me think that something fishy was going down.
Okay. And specifically, do you have experience responding to 311 or 911 calls that have cryptic messages encoded in them?
Yes, I do.
Would this have been your first rodeo when you responded to this call?
At this August 5th? No. Hell no.
All right, now, at the very bottom of the exhibit, I'd like you to read the very last line.
Which part exactly? The location or the message
Very
itself?
bottom, the location.
It was Tongva Drive, Chiliad Mountain State Wilderness.
Now, after you received that 911 call, what happened?
I told my cadet, now Senior Deputy Fisher, that we needed to go to that call. And, so we called ourselves to the situation. Numerous other officers called themselves to the situation as well. It was one of the slower mornings, so to say. So everyone was chomping at the bits to get involved with something. Numerous officers called themselves to the scene.
Understood. Now, can you describe the scene when you actually got to the call?
So when I arrived on scene, we were a little bit slower. We were deep. I think we were in the south side when we first got the call, so we're pretty far away from where the call originated from. But we made our way there, and when we arrived on scene, then Undersheriff Sven Carter had landed his helicopter. He had one gentleman at gunpoint who seemed to be floating of sorts. And then there was a female individual laying on the ground at at the foot of a little stone area type deal. We were one of the last on scene, so everyone got the individual at gunpoint. And as everyone had him at gunpoint, I approached, grabbed the female, and grabbed unfortunately what was left of her, and pulled her away from the area of danger. So that's what I saw there. As I approached her, there was a bunch of symbols in the area, different stuff posted or spray painted on the rocks or on the signs, but I didn't take note of what they were. I was just focused on getting that individual who was hurt out of there at the time being.
Okay. I would like now for you to reference exhibits 2C through 2E. So 2C, 2D, and 2E. You could start with exhibit 2C. That would be appreciated.
So yeah, on 2C, looking at this one here, there's two different kind of symbols and signs there. There's an eye that's kind of on the ground there, and then there's a little note on the rock that says "Praise be Sectora." Where the eye is at on the ground, that's where the body was laying when I approached it.
So the body was laying directly on the symbol.
To the best of my recollection, correct.
Now, have you ever seen that symbol before?
Not until that day.
Okay. What about the phrase written on the rock?
Not until that day. That's the first time I saw it. There.
And the pamphlet posted on the sign or the post of it. Did you
I
see
had
it?
never seen that. I'd never seen that pamphlet before. No. First time
No.
seeing something like that.
You could now, of course, reference Exhibit 2D. Now, is that
Yep.
the same scene?
Same scene, yes. That's it's more of a close up of the little pamphlet sign that was posted on the sign on the pole there at the scene.
And finally, 2E. Describe that exhibit.
2E, again, it's just an even more closer look at the actual note that was posted up on the telephone pole there. It has what seems to be a poem here. It has the same eye symbol that was on the ground. It's at the bottom of that little note there as well. And then if you take a note, if you take a look at the actual note itself, there are some letters that are a little bit faded compared to the rest, almost pink in color compared to red. And unfortunately, they spell out my last name of Arnom.
Okay. Can you read the very top line? Then after that, I'd like you to read another line. First
Yeah, I
three
mean,
words of the very top.
it seems like it's titled Hymn of Death. Is what this thing is titled as.
And what is at the very bottom, right above the symbol?
In black ink, it says, "You are the one."
Now, do you know who "You Are the One" is referencing?
I am led to believe, based on obviously the little clues left here in the note in my interview with Mr. Deluca, that I am the one.
I see. All right. Now, after you arrived on scene, you stated previously in your testimony that there was a body laying on the symbol in this
Correct.
encampment.
Correct.
Right. Can you describe what that body looked like at the time?
At the time, she had no head. She had been beheaded, and there was what appeared to be pieces of her body just missing. And from what I'm not a medical expert, but it looked like her body had been chewed upon, potentially. Excuse me. But again, I'm no medical expert. I couldn't tell at the time. But we found out later on that that was definitely the case.
Now, other than officers, was there anyone standing near this body?
Just the defendant, Enzo Deluca.
Right, can you point him out for the court?
That's going to be the gentleman in cuffs in the black suit with the gray turtleneck.
Just to confirm, that's the same individual that was standing directly above the body that you found?
Yes. Obviously, he's a little bit more cleaned up today for court.
Asked and answered.
I'll let you roll, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Was the objection sustained? Or overruled?
Can I get a bit more reasoning for?
Yes, Your Honor. He literally just asked the same question twice in a row after asking to point him out. It's the exact same question.
I'll leave that to your ruling, Your Honor.
Objection system. You can strike that one from the record.
All right. Now, Detective Arnom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you ever partake in the identification of the body that you found?
Are you talking about the victim?
Yes.
I personally did not, but I was there when the autopsy was done.
Okay. Now, were you on the radio when you were driving to the scene?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Now, was there anything said by any officers in regards to this specific scene that you took a mental note to and remembered?
Yes. So on the way to the scene, I think we were just past Chumash, traveling up northbound on Great Ocean Highway to the scene, when Under Sheriff Sven Carter said he was landing Air 1, and then he exclaimed, "Oh my God, he's eating her body."
He
Or
said that over the radio, correct?
he said that over the radio, very loud.
Okay. Now, back to the scene. You stated that. What was your role in this scene? What did you overall do? Did you apprehend the defendant? Did you identify the body?
My first thing was to get the victim to safety as quick as possible. I wasn't sure if she was alive or not. Obviously, when I approached her body and saw, unfortunately, she had no head, I knew at that point she was deceased. However, once I got her away from the suspect into safety, as I was dragging her back and examining her body, the suspect started to flee. So I believe it was Under Sheriff Carter who led their pursuit against that individual, while I stayed up on the scene to secure it and gather any sort of evidence and clues we could at that moment in time.
Okay. Now,
So I coordinated the team at the crime scene.
I see. Now, was there anything that you found on the scene that stood out to you?
Other than the clues and markings that were not clues, but like all the cultist markings and such, there was a motorcycle registered to Mr. DeLuca left pretty much right near the same area, and then there was an unregistered quad in the area too, but that could have been to anyone.
Okay. Now, I would now like for you to reference. You could pull up exhibits 3A and 3B. I feel like you first start with 3A.
Yeah, so
Recognize
3A is the motorcycle that does come back registered to Enzo Deluca. It's a, I believe it's called a Demon or Damon. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. It's not like a sports bike. It's more of a Harley type motorcycle.
Now, was that photo taken on the day of the incident?
Correct. It was taken after Mr. DeLuca was brought into custody, I believe.
Okay. Now, if you could reference 3B.
Yep.
Now, seems to be a picture of an MDT. Can you describe exactly what's mentioned on 3B?
Yeah, it's the plate that was ran that you can see in 3A. We ran the full plate in the MDT, and it just shows that the bike does come back to Enzo Deluca.
Okay. Now, can you point out the owner? First off, is the owner of this motorcycle in the courtroom?
Correct. They are.
Can you point them out?
It's going to be the defendant, standing in cuffs.
All right, thank you. All right, now, you stated that you were in charge of collecting evidence, correct?
Coordinating the team that was collecting evidence, correct.
And another officer was apprehending the defendant?
Correct.
Now, in the time that you were collecting evidence, did any evidence get contaminated, lost, or otherwise is it not submitted to this court today?
Negative. All the pictures that were submitted as evidence were taken either by myself, Captain Arnom, or Detective Landmark.
Now, did you at any point search the defendant?
No, I did not.
Did you ever handle any of the evidence that was a result of the search?
Not from his person, no.
Now, did you interrogate the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Now, I'd like for you to reference. This is going to be Exhibit 6.
Okay.
Now, with Exhibit 6 in mind, could you please describe what the interrogation was? What was the purpose? How did it end?
So the purpose was to figure out why he did what he did to Dorothy. During the interview, I just, I'd have to go through. I don't have a full transcript of the whole conversation. But during the interview, the highlights, the TLDR was, I asked him if he killed Dorothy Deluca. He said yes. And then he alluded to the fact that I was going to be next, that I was the chosen one, and that I was the next one to be sacrificed.
I see. Now, I'd like to read a transcript from Exhibit 6. This is going to be from timestamps 3 minutes and 50 seconds to timestamps 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, if possible, I'd like you to confirm the validity of this transcript for me. Now, I'm going to start from what you say. This is from yourself. I'm quoting. Who was the lady that you took up to the mountain? This is the defendant speaking. She was the one. Sorry, apologies. She is one the likes of you. You were chosen. She was chosen. This again is going to be you speaking. Chosen by who? The one? The I? Again, this is the defendant. Precisely. Again, yourself. So she was chosen to be sacrificed. And defendant, exactly. This is you, of course. Sacrifice to what and for what? Again, this is the defendant. Blood for the blood god. Now, can you confirm whether or not that is what the defendant stated?
Yeah, it sounds par for the course of the type of speech he was speaking that day, if that makes any sense.
Now, have you ever, before this event in specific, investigated in any way been a part of a murder investigation?
Yes, that's kind of my specialty, my line of work. Those are the cases that I look for are murder cases. I like to challenge from them.
Now, I would imagine that you have a lot of training and experience in terms of murder investigation in that case, is that right?
I would like to think so.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, do you know the elements of first-degree felony murder?
Yeah, it's in the legal term, it's a Latin term called mens rea. It's basically the premeditation behind it. The difference between first degree and second degree is, was there any sort of premeditation? If there was, then it's first degree. If it was in the spur of the moment, act of passion, then it'd be second degree.
Okay. Now, first, I'd like to go back to the scene for a moment. Now, would you say that you found a large or small amount of cultist symbols and objects strewed throughout the scene?
I would say, probably. Can I go with a medium amount here? Or do you want large or small? Because there's three different markings there, which it's enough to really just kind of set up a scene, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so you would say a medium amount?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, were those symbols there prior to the event in question?
To my knowledge, yes. I mean, it wasn't like we were watching him place them down when we arrived on scene.
Perhaps I need to rephrase. To your knowledge, were those symbols there in the previous, say, 24 hours, days, weeks, months?
I wouldn't be able to confidently say. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell. There's no way for us to tell how long stuff's been kind of placed on the ground or posted up and stuff like that.
Understood. Now, if we're going back, of course, to the interrogation and, of course, the question of what elements make up a first-degree felony murder. Now, in order to suffice the burden of premeditation, in your experience, is a defendant choosing their victim. Does that go into play in premeditation?
100%. She, based on the conversation with Mr. DeLuca, as you read out through the transcript, she was chosen. And-
Objection, Your Honor.
Reason?
Speculation.
Your Honor, overall, this is, of course, I think we've established that Detective Arnom is, I would say, an expert in terms of murder investigations, first-degree murder as far as the charge. So asking him a hypothetical as far as, in a hypothetical situation, would a defendant choosing their victim qualify as premeditation, I think is completely reasonable. It isn't having to do with this case in specific.
Reason to support my claim, Your Honor. Deciding could have took a mere instant. Thus, not premeditated.
All right. If you were going to enter Detective Arnhem as an expert witness, you should have done that prior to the trial, so we could have had a Robert hearing if needed. So I am going to sustain that objection and choosing your line of questioning.
Of course. Again, can you summarize how the interrogation went? What the defendant stated?
So just to recap, he stated that she was a chosen one, just like how I am a chosen one. Which reinstates me. When I read the note that was posted up on the telephone pole, again, if you reference, I think it was 3D, I'd have to go back and check. It is the picture of the note. Everything's written in red aside from the "You are the chosen one" and the symbol. Those are painted in black. But then throughout the whole message, in pink letters, in order, it spells out my last name. Thankfully, nothing's come to harm of me due to all this. But as a detective, not even an expert, murder investigator, as a detective, it's pretty easy dots to point together that if something were to happen to me, that I was chosen and it was premeditated if anything were to happen to me.
I see. Now, did the defendant ever state in this interrogation that he was part of a group? Or he had some sort of end goal?
Never mentioned any sort of end goal, no. He said that he worshipped the One. When we tried to extract who the One was, I believe he mentioned the I, and it was just back and forth between the I, the One, the I, the One, the whole kind of carousel ride of that.
Did you get the sense that the defendant was obsessed?
With this religion, potentially, or this group. I don't want to know if I want to exactly call it a religion. Never heard of it. It could come off as such, yeah.
Now, in the interrogation, did he state that this group, religion, cult, whatever it may be described as, was the reason that he murdered Miss Levinstein?
That I don't 100% recall.
Thank you, Detective Arnold. No further questions right now.
All right. Before I give the defense a chance to cross-examine, I just want to apologize and ask, can we please have the defendant uncuffed? I only realized a couple of moments ago, and there is the presumption of innocence until proven guilty.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Defense, you're free to cross-examine.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Detective Arnom, how long have you been employed with your precinct?
Since early March. I don't know my exact hire date.
Early March. Not bad. Over this time frame that you've been employed, you've seen plenty of 5150s, I'm sure. Have you not?
I've seen enough preliminary examinations, but none go through to full mental holds.
So, you did get a mental eval for Mr. Enzo, did you not?
Correct, one was requested for him.
And it was carried out, was it not?
It was.
And what was the result of said test?
To my recollection, he was not recommended for an extended hold.
Okay. For now, that will do. No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution wish to recross?
Just give me one moment here. Yes, just a few more questions. Now, Detective Arnom, if I could get you again to look at the court docket with all of the evidence up. Now, can you state, do you see anywhere on the court docket where a doctor has diagnosed the defendant with any mental disorder?
Looking through, I don't see anything like that submitted into the court docket.
Okay. What about any orders or recommendations from a doctor that state the defendant is unfit to stand trial or is legally insane?
Again, don't see anything of the sorts there.
No further questions, Your Honor?
All right. Defense.
Yes. So, Detective,
Mm-hmm.
we are all aware that it does take a mental aptitude, not a mental aptitude test, but a mental, Jesus, I literally just drew a blank on the word. Evaluation, your mental evaluation. So, in order for that to actually pass in court, it has to be proven, does it not? Which the mental evaluation that was done was not, correct?
I don't think I understand what you're trying to say.
If the mental evaluation does not clearly say that the person has a mental or cognitive problem, unless it directly states that, then the person cannot be deemed unfit for trial, correct? It's a pretty simple question.
That I think you're making very complicated. Essentially, when it comes to a 5150 hold, we can request preliminary, I'm just going to explain it how I think you're asking me. We can request for a preliminary examination, and we can request for, and if the examination is deemed fit to the preliminary that they need an advanced one, then an advanced one will be done. To my knowledge, the preliminary one was done a few days after we arrested Mr. Deluca. It wasn't even the same day. It was a few days after we had to get it scheduled, obviously, with the people that can do it proper. And then after that, again, to my knowledge, an advanced one was not recommended. That he was not deemed, it didn't seem he needed to have the advanced one done. Again, I'm not the one who personally requested the 5150. That was District Attorney Pierce, so I was not involved with the whole process. This is just what I was told the night that it happened.
See, I'm having an issue here, Detective. Your mannerisms are quite calm and quite steady until you get to the end of what you're trying to not say, in which case your speech becomes quite stuttery,
Your
and
Honor,
I
I'm
can
gonna
tell
have
you're
defense
thinking.
Counsel's testifying.
Hold on. Is
Yeah,
it because...
Objection sustained, Mr. Wilkins. You're not here to testify. You're here question.
Do you know the direct result of the mental eval? Yes or no?
No, I've said this
No
multiple
further
times
questions,
through
Your
my
Honor.
statement. Just gotta listen, bruh.
Detective Arnom,
Sorry.
your attitude in the courtroom is to be professional. If you have another outburst like that one, I will hold you in contempt.
I understand.
Right. I'm going to allow the prosecution one more chance to recross if they so wish.
No, Your Honor. No further
All
questions.
right. Detective Arnom, you are
Appreciate it.
prosecution. You may call your next witness.
The state calls Detective Landmark to the stand.
Just heads up, Landmark's out at a crime scene at the moment. He's not available at the moment. I apologize.
The state will instead, in the absence of Detective Landmark, call Medic CollyMore to the stand.
Miss CollyMore, if you would face me real quick. Raise both hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you may go and take your station.
Hello there, Miss CollyMore. How are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Holding it together.
That's very good to hear. Now, you're currently employed.
Currently employed in the Los Santos Fire Department as a position of paramedic, and Foxhound Solutions as the team leader of the company.
I see. Now, as a medic with the Los Santos Fire Department, have they provided you with extensive training in terms of practicing medicine or rendering first aid?
Yes, sir.
I see. Now, are you qualified to declare a person dead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with the victim in this case, Miss Levenstein?
Negative.
Okay. So you had met her previous to the incident, is that right?
No. I never seen the person before.
Okay. Now, did you respond to a request for medical assistance on August 5th, 2021, up in a Paleto Bay encampment?
Can you repeat the location?
Up in a Paleto Bay encampment.
Yes, sir. If you're referring to the state wilderness, yes, sir.
Yes. Now, do you recall how you were requested up to that location?
On the 5th of August, I was stationed in Legion Square, and we had a dispatch call, and when we, as medics, receive, I don't know what the correct word, but cryptic-ish calls, we always wait for a code 4 from LEOs before we head there.
And was that true in this case?
Yes, I stayed in Legion Square until I received a call on the radio from the LEOs in the area that we are code 4, the situation is code 4 and we're clear to come in.
Okay. And at that point, did you head up to the scene?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you first arrived on scene, what did you see?
A few police officers standing around what appears to be a body. And as soon as I approached the body, I had to look away immediately.
Why was that?
Seeing a remains of a human body, I did not expect to see that on that day. Plus, in that time, I had a person missing, and basically, I refused to respond to that call alone. In that case, I'm sorry.
It's alright, take your time.
Which Valeria Woods asked if I would like some company. So I said yes, and we doubled up to head to that call together. In the entire time on my way, I was hoping that it wouldn't be the person that is currently missing.
Now, can you describe the victim as you saw her?
The victim, if I recall correctly, had no head, missing several limbs, and had 2 slashes across her chest with what appears to be a very sharp object.
Okay. So you stated, if I can recall this correctly, there were slash marks on her chest. She was missing limbs and a head. And what else did you state?
Upon further examination in the morgue, there were a few bite marks on her body. After examining them, it looked exactly the shape of human teeth.
I see. Now, would you be qualified to determine whether or not the markings that you found on the body were in fact bite marks or not?
Yes, sir.
So, were these human teeth? Or were these animal teeth?
To my knowledge, they looked exactly like human teeth.
I see. Now, are you the one that declared Miss Levenstein dead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I'd like to back up just a little bit. How did you identify Miss Levenstein?
I'm sorry, say that again.
How did you identify Miss Levenstein?
Through the fingerprint device.
I see. In that, did you run that fingerprint device yourself?
Negative. If I recall correctly, it was Miss Woods.
Okay. So that fingerprint device, it comes back to the name
What?
Timothy Levenstein. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Oh, sure.
in terms of rendering aid, was there any aid that you personally rendered to Miss Levenstein?
I don't believe I understand your question. If you can rephrase it kindly.
Of course. Did you render any aid to Miss Levenstein? And this is medical aid.
Negative. She
You
was
but-
she was missing her head and several limbs. There's nothing I can do further.
I see. Now, I would like for you to quickly reference Exhibit 5. If you could just confirm whether or not Exhibit 5 is the death report that you wrote for Miss Levenstein.
That is correct. It is the death report that I personally submitted.
I see. Okay. Did you at any point see the defendant on scene?
I believe I heard the officers on scene saying that he is in a back of a cruiser, but I did not personally see him. As in, it's not my duty to look for him. I was tending to what remained of Miss Levenstein.
I see. All right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Defense, you can cross-examine.
The defense will decline.
All right. CollyMore, you are excused.
Thank Thank you, Your Honor.
Prosecution, you can call your next witness.
Your Honor, the state calls Detective Landmark to the stand.
I am a fan of that man's tie.
Did Landmark mind approaching up here? Sir, if you would face me. Raise both hands. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you may take your station.
Good afternoon. Can you state your full name?
Frank Landmark.
Good afternoon, Detective Landmark. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Now, can you state your current occupation?
Detective with the Major Crimes Division, Sheriff's Department.
I see. Now, I'd like you to reference Exhibit 1 at this. Now, and of course, I'd like you to state whether you recognize that exhibit or not.
Give me a quick second. Exhibit 1, you said?
Exhibit 1.
So the initial 311 call that came in, yeah, I recognize that.
Okay. Now, did you at all respond to that call?
I did, yeah. I was at Sandy Shores PD when the call came in.
Okay. And what was the date and approximate time?
I'd have to refresh my memory. Give me a second.
Of course.
So the date was the 5th of August. And I can't quite remember the time. It was around early evening for me, I'd say.
Okay. Now, were you on the radio at the time the call came in?
When the call came in, I was on the Major Crimes radio, yeah.
Okay. Now, did you respond to this call, Exhibit 1?
I did, yeah. I switched to Central TAC and I informed them I was en route to that call, yeah.
Now, did you hear any other officer exclaim anything that wasn't normal radio traffic on your way up to the scene?
Yeah, Sven Cotter exclaimed when he arrived on scene in regards to something along the lines of he's eating her or something along those lines.
Okay.
That
Now,
was exclaimed when I was about halfway there.
I see. Now, other than officers, when you arrived on scene, who did you see?
So when I arrived on scene, outside of officers to my front by the podium in the camp would have been a Enzo Deluca and the body of Miss Levenstein on the floor.
All right. Now, once you actually arrived on scene, what was the defendant doing?
So when I arrived on scene a little later, I witnessed Mr. Carter holding the defendant at gunpoint, to which the gunpoint was walking away from the body of Miss Levenstein towards the rock on the central stand.